The silk of my wedding dress clung to my skin like a second layer of humiliation. I stood there, clutching the bouquet of white roses so tightly that a thorn pierced through the ribbon wrapping, drawing a small bead of blood on my thumb. The crimson droplets seemed obscene against all the white. White flowers, white dress, white lies. "Emma, sweetheart," my mother's voice cracked from somewhere behind me, but I couldn't turn around. Couldn't face the pitying stares of 200 guests who had watched me wait at the altar for 43 minutes. 43 minutes of my life I'd never get back, standing there like a fool while the string quartet awkwardly cycled through their entire repertoire twice. Marcus wasn't coming. The chapel felt suffocating despite its vaulted ceilings. The scent of lilies, his mother had insisted on lilies, made my stomach churn. I could hear whispers rippling through the pews like a toxic wave, each murmur another knife in my back. Poor thing. I heard he emptied their joint account. Did you know she paid for everything? What kind of man? I ran. The heavy doors of St. Catherine's burst open as I shoved through them, gasping for air that didn't smell like funeral flowers and broken dreams. My heels caught on the stone steps, and I stumbled forward, the bouquet flying from my hands and scattering across the sidewalk. Rose petals crushed beneath my feet as I steadied myself against the iron railing, my breath coming in sharp, painful gasps. The afternoon sun was too bright, too cheerful for what was happening. Manhattan stretched before me in all its indifferent glory, cars honking, people rushing past without a second glance at the crying bride on the church steps. I was just another piece of street theater to them. My phone buzzed in the small clutch my maid of honor had carried for me. With shaking hands, I retrieved it. One text from Marcus. Just one. "Sorry, Em. I can't do this. The money from the account will help me start over. You'll understand someday." The phone slipped from my fingers and clattered on the concrete. Through the blur of tears, I watched the screen crack in a perfect diagonal line, splitting his name in two. $26,000, my entire savings, 3 years of working double shifts at the hospital, skipping meals, walking instead of taking cabs. Gone. He'd transferred it out yesterday while I was at my final dress fitting, probably laughing with whatever woman he'd really chosen while I'd been spinning in front of mirrors, believing in fairy tales. "Miss, you dropped this." The voice was different from any I'd heard before. Smooth, measured, with an undertone that suggested danger wrapped in silk. I looked up through my tears and saw a hand extending my broken phone toward me. The hand was adorned with a single ring, platinum with a black onyx stone, and belonged to a man who seemed to materialize from the shadows, despite standing in full sunlight. He was perhaps 30, maybe 32, with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble, all sharp angles and perfect symmetry, except for a small scar that cut through his left eyebrow. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my wedding budget, tailored so precisely it might have been sewn directly onto his body. The scent that reached me was subtle but intoxicating, sandalwood and something darker, something that made me think of expensive whiskey and secrets. But it was his eyes that stopped my breath. Dark, almost black. They assessed me with an intensity that made me feel simultaneously exposed and protected. "Thank you," I managed, my voice hoarse from crying. I reached for the phone, and when our fingers brushed, I felt a jolt that had nothing to do with static electricity. Behind him, I noticed a black Mercedes idling at the curb. Its windows tinted so dark they seemed to absorb light. A man in a similar suit stood beside the rear door, his posture military straight, his eyes constantly scanning the street. Another man sat in the driver's seat, and I could see the outline of at least one more person in the back. The stranger didn't release my phone immediately. Instead, he studied my face with those penetrating eyes, taking in the smeared mascara, the wild tendrils of hair escaping from my updo, the blood on my thumb. "You're hurt," he said, and there was something in his tone that made it sound less like an observation and more like a transgression against him personally. "It's nothing, just a thorn." "Nothing," he repeated, as if testing the word and finding it insufficient. He pulled a pristine white handkerchief from his breast pocket. Who even carried those anymore? And before I could protest, he wrapped it carefully around my thumb. His touch was surprisingly gentle, at odds with the hardness in his eyes. "You were getting married today," he stated. Not a question. I let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "How could you tell?" The corner of his mouth quirked, not quite a smile, but close. "Call it intuition." His gaze moved past me to the church doors, where I could hear my mother's voice calling my name. And I'd venture to guess it didn't go according to plan. He didn't show up. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. And he stole all my money. So no, not exactly the fairy tale ending. Something shifted in his expression. A darkness that moved behind his eyes like a predator stirring in its den. His name. What? The man who did this to you. His name. There was a weight to the question that made my skin prickle with awareness. This wasn't idle curiosity or polite sympathy. This was something else entirely. Why would you need... Emma! My mother's voice was closer now. I could hear multiple footsteps on the church steps behind me. The stranger's hand moved to the small of my back, a gesture that should have felt presumptuous, but instead felt like an anchor in a storm. His touch radiated heat through the thin silk of my dress. "You have a choice to make," he said quietly, his breath warm against my ear. "You can turn around and face them all. The pity, the questions, the humiliation. Or..." He paused, his hand pressing slightly firmer against my spine. "You can get in the car. I don't even know you." "No," he agreed, "but right now, I'm the only exit you have from this nightmare." I should have been terrified. Every instinct should have been screaming at me to run from this stranger who radiated danger like heat from asphalt in summer. But instead, I felt drawn to him, to the darkness he promised, to anything that wasn't the pitying faces waiting for me behind those church doors. "Emma Rose Mitchell!" My mother's voice again, sharp with panic now. The stranger's eyes held mine, waiting. Not pushing, but offering. There was a power in his stillness, in the way he commanded space without effort. Behind me, I heard my mother's gasp as she finally emerged from the church. "Emma, what are you... Who is that man?" My hand, still wrapped in his handkerchief, moved toward the car as if of its own accord. The bodyguard opened the rear door with practiced efficiency, his face betraying no emotion whatsoever. "Trust me," the stranger murmured, and it was perhaps the most honest thing anyone had said to me all day. He wasn't asking me to trust that he was safe or good. He was simply asking me to trust him. I climbed into the Mercedes. The interior smelled of leather and that same intoxicating scent that clung to him. He slid in beside me, maintaining a careful distance that somehow felt more intimate than if he'd pressed against me. The door closed with a solid, final sound, like a coffin lid or a vault ceiling. "Go," he said to the driver, and we pulled smoothly into traffic. Through the darkened windows, I watched my mother standing on the sidewalk, her hand pressed to her mouth, my wedding bouquet scattered at her feet like fallen soldiers. The church, the guests, Marcus's absence. Everything receded as we drove deeper into Manhattan. My heart hammered against my ribs. What had I just done? Gotten into a car with a complete stranger because he'd offered me an escape? Because his eyes had promised something, protection, revenge, oblivion. I wasn't sure which. "Where are we going?" My voice sounded small in the car's luxurious interior. He turned to look at me fully for the first time since we'd left the church. In the car's dimness, his features were even more striking, all shadows and sharp edges. "Where would you like to go?" "I don't know. I don't have anywhere. No family? Just my mother. And she'll be..." I couldn't finish the sentence. She'd be what? Worried? Angry? Disappointed that her daughter had fled her own failed wedding with a strange man? "Your apartment?" I laughed bitterly. Marcus and I shared an apartment. Lease is in his name. I imagine he's already changed the locks. Something dangerous flickered across his face again. "So, he leaves you at the altar, steals your money, and takes your home." Quite the romantic. The way he said it, so calm, so matter-of-fact, made Marcus's betrayal sound like a business transaction, which, I supposed, it had been for Marcus all along. "I have some money saved at..." I stopped. No, I didn't. Marcus had cleaned out our joint account. The only money I had was about $200 in my personal checking account. and whatever cash was in my apartment. If I could even get into my apartment. "You have nothing," the stranger said quietly, not a question, a statement of fact. Shame burned through me, hot and acidic. Here I was, in my ruined wedding dress, crying to a stranger about how thoroughly I'd been destroyed in the span of an hour. "I'll figure something out. You can just drop me at a hotel or something. I'll manage." "With $200? He tilted his head slightly, studying me. "That won't get you far in Manhattan. One night, perhaps. Maybe two if you pick somewhere unfortunate." "How did you—" I stared at him. "Did you look at my phone? No need. You have the look of someone who's always been careful with money. Practical. Which means you probably kept some savings separate from your fiancé, but not much because you trusted him. Am I wrong?" He wasn't. The accuracy of his assessment made me uncomfortable. "Who are you?" For the first time, something that might have been amusement crossed his features. "You get into my car, and only now you ask? Better late than never?" "Indeed." He shifted slightly, his knee brushing against the silk of my dress. "My name is Dante Moretti." The name hit me like a physical blow. Moretti. Even in my sheltered world of double hospital shifts and wedding planning, I'd heard that name. Everyone in New York had heard that name, usually whispered in the same tone people used for ghost stories or curses. The Moretti family. Organized crime. The kind of power that operated in shadows, but controlled everything touched by sunlight. My face must have betrayed my recognition because Dante's expression hardened slightly. "I see my reputation precedes me. You're—" I couldn't say it. Saying it would make it real. "Dangerous?" he supplied. "Yes, but not to you." His hand moved, fingers brushing along my jaw in a gesture that was both threatening and tender. "Never to you, Piccola." The Italian endearment rolled off his tongue like honey, and despite everything, despite the fear that should have been coursing through me, I felt something else entirely. Something hot and reckless. "Then why did you help me? Why pick up some random crying bride off church steps?" His thumb traced my lower lip, and I stopped breathing. "You weren't random. I was there for other business. But when I saw you standing there, drowning in white silk and broken promises, looking like a fallen angel," he paused, his eyes darkening further. "I couldn't leave you to the wolves, but you're a wolf yourself," I whispered. His smile was sharp enough to draw blood. "Yes, but I'm your wolf now, and I protect what's mine." The car glided through Manhattan's streets with the smooth confidence of something that never had to stop for anyone. I watched the city blur past through tinted windows, my mind struggling to process what had just happened. An hour ago, I'd been a bride. Now I was sitting next to a man whose name made hardened criminals cross themselves. "Where are we going?" I asked again, because he still hadn't actually answered. "Somewhere safe." Dante's hand remained on the seat between us, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his skin through the silk of my dress. "Somewhere you can think clearly." "I can think clearly right here." His eyes slid toward me, dark and assessing. "Can you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're still in shock. You're running on adrenaline and heartbreak, which makes people do—" He paused, his gaze dropping to where my hands twisted the handkerchief he'd given me. "Unpredictable things, like getting into cars with strangers?" Exactly like that. There was no judgment in his tone, only a statement of fact that somehow made me feel both foolish and understood. The Mercedes turned onto a tree-lined street in the Upper East Side, the kind of neighborhood where doormen wore uniforms nicer than most people's wedding attire. We pulled up to a limestone building that rose 15 stories. Its facade elegant and understated, in the way that only truly expensive things could be. The bodyguard who'd been sitting in the passenger seat, I noticed his jacket shifted slightly to reveal a shoulder holster, opened my door before I could reach for the handle. Dante exited from his side with fluid grace, then extended his hand to help me out. I stared at his hand. Taking it felt like crossing a threshold I couldn't uncross. "I don't bite, Emma." His voice carried a trace of amusement, not without permission. The way he said my name, like he was tasting it, testing its weight, sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with the autumn breeze. I placed my hand in his, and he pulled me from the car with surprising gentleness. My heels clicked against the sidewalk, and I became acutely aware of how I must look. Wedding dress, smeared makeup, blood-stained handkerchief wrapped around my thumb. A few pedestrians glanced our way, but their gazes skittered off as soon as they registered the men surrounding us. The bodyguards formed a loose perimeter, their presence enough to make people unconsciously alter their paths. "Mr. Moretti." The doorman's greeting was respectful, but not subservient. He opened the glass door with white-gloved hands, his expression carefully neutral as he took in my appearance. The lobby was all marble and understated luxury, the kind of place where the art on the walls was probably worth more than most people's houses. Our footsteps echoed as Dante guided me toward a private elevator, his hand never leaving the small of my back. The bodyguards remained in the lobby, taking up positions that seemed casual, but blocked all exits. Dante pressed his thumb to a biometric scanner, and the elevator doors whispered open. "Penthouse," I said. "Of course it's a penthouse. Would you have expected anything less?" He ushered me inside, then pressed the button marked PH. There were only 2 buttons, lobby and penthouse. The entire top floor was his. As the elevator climbed, I caught my reflection in the polished brass doors. I looked like something from a Gothic novel. Pale, haunted, drowning in white fabric. The woman staring back at me was someone I didn't recognize, someone who'd abandoned her family at her failed wedding to follow a mobster into his lair. "Second thoughts?" Dante asked quietly. "About 100 of them. Yet you're still here." I turned to face him, and in the elevator's confined space, his presence was overwhelming. He was tall. I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes, and the scent of sandalwood and danger seemed to fill my lungs with each breath. "Why am I here, really?" I asked. "You said you were at the church for other business. What business?" Something flickered behind his eyes. Respect, maybe, for the question. "The church's priest, Father Thomas, owed money to someone I know. I was there to facilitate a conversation about repayment." "You threatened a priest on my wedding day?" "I didn't threaten anyone. I simply reminded him of his obligations." The elevator dinged softly, and the doors opened directly into his apartment. "And it wasn't your wedding day, Piccola. Your groom made sure of that." The casual cruelty of the truth made me flinch, but before I could respond, the sheer opulence of his home stole my words. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Manhattan, the city sprawling beneath us like a kingdom. The space was modern, but warm. Dark wood floors, leather furniture, and art that even my untrained eye recognized as significant. A kitchen with professional-grade appliances gleamed to my left, while to my right, a living area flowed into what appeared to be a library. But it was the details that caught my attention. Fresh flowers in crystal vases, a chess set mid-game on a side table, photographs in silver frames, family, I assumed, though I couldn't see them clearly from where I stood. This wasn't the lair of a monster. It was a home. "Bathroom is through there," Dante said, gesturing to a hallway. "First door on the right. There are robes in the closet. Take your time." I stood frozen, suddenly aware that I was alone with him. Truly alone. No bodyguards, no witnesses, no escape except an elevator that probably wouldn't open without his permission. He must have read the fear on my face because his expression softened fractionally. "Emma, if I wanted to hurt you, I would have done it already. You're safe here. Safer than you'd be anywhere else in this city right now." "Why? Why do you care what happens to me?" He moved closer, and I forced myself not to step back. His hand rose slowly, giving me time to pull away, before his fingers traced the tear tracks on my cheek with unexpected tenderness. "Because when I saw you on those steps," he said quietly, "broken and bleeding and still standing, I saw something I haven't seen in a very long time." His thumb brushed my lower lip again, and my breath hitched. Strength wrapped in vulnerability. Innocence that hasn't been completely destroyed by this world, and I thought... He paused, his jaw tightening. "I thought how rare that is, how precious. I'm not precious. I'm just a woman who worked herself to exhaustion to build a life with someone who didn't deserve her, who saved every penny while he planned his betrayal, who stands here now, terrified, but not broken. His hand cupped my face fully, forcing me to hold his gaze. Yes, Emma, you are precious, and I've decided you're mine to protect. The possessiveness in his voice should have frightened me. Instead, it ignited something low in my belly, something warm and dangerous. You can't just decide that, I whispered. I can. I have. His smile was predatory, and you agreed when you got in my car. That's not... I didn't agree to anything. I just needed to get away. And where did you go? He leaned closer, his breath warm against my temple, to me. You chose me, Emma. Now live with that choice. I pulled back, anger finally cutting through the shock and confusion. This is insane. I don't even know you. You're a... I hesitated, unable to say the word. Criminal? He supplied it easily without shame. Yes, I am. I hurt people who deserve hurting. I take what belongs to me. I protect my territory and punish those who cross me. He moved past me toward a bar cart, pouring amber liquid into 2 crystal glasses. But I also have rules, lines I don't cross. And one of those lines is hurting innocent people. How noble of you, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm that surprised even me. He turned back, eyebrows raised, and handed me one of the glasses. Drink. It'll help. I don't drink whiskey. You do today. He raised his own glass in a mock toast. To new experiences, the whiskey burned going down. But he was right. It helped. The warmth spread through my chest, loosening something that had been wound tight since Marcus's text message. I need to get my things from the apartment, I said, trying to focus on practical matters because everything else felt too overwhelming. My clothes, my documents, my... already being handled. I stared at him. What? I sent men to your apartment 20 minutes ago. They're collecting your belongings as we speak. Everything you own will be here within the hour. The glass almost slipped from my fingers. You sent men to break into my apartment? They didn't break in. They convinced the superintendent to grant access, very politely. His smile was sharp. And before you ask, no, your ex-fiancé wasn't there. According to the superintendent, he left this morning with 3 suitcases and a blonde woman. The pain was immediate and visceral, even though I'd known, must have known on some level, that there was someone else. But hearing it confirmed, hearing that he'd been planning this exit with another woman while I'd been planning our wedding, the glass shook in my hand. Dante took it gently, set it aside, and then his hands were on my shoulders, steadying me. Breathe, Piccola. Just breathe. He was with her this morning, I said, my voice breaking. While I was getting ready, putting on this dress, believing in... A sob cut off my words. Shh. Dante pulled me against his chest, and I should have resisted, but I couldn't. I collapsed into him, my hands fisting in his expensive jacket, and finally let myself shatter. He held me while I cried, one hand stroking my hair, the other firm against my back. He didn't offer empty platitudes or tell me everything would be okay. He just held me, steady and solid, while I broke apart. When the tears finally subsided, I became aware of how intimately we were pressed together. I could feel the steady beat of his heart, the rise and fall of his breathing. His scent enveloped me, sandalwood and something uniquely him, something that made me want to burrow closer instead of pulling away. Better? His voice rumbled through his chest. I nodded against him, not quite ready to step back. The bathroom, he said softly. Go clean up. I'll order food. You need to eat. This time I didn't argue. I pulled away from his embrace and walked toward the hallway he'd indicated, hyper-aware of his gaze on my back. The bathroom was larger than my childhood bedroom. White marble, a shower that could fit 4 people, a soaking tub positioned to take advantage of the city view. I caught sight of myself in the mirror and almost didn't recognize the woman staring back, mascara streaked, hair wild, eyes red and swollen. The woman Marcus had left at the altar. The woman Dante Moretti had claimed as his to protect. I peeled off the wedding dress with hands that shook only slightly. The silk pooled at my feet like a ghost, and I stepped out of it without looking back. In the closet, I found a black silk robe that smelled like Dante, sandalwood and danger, and wrapped myself in it. It fell to my knees, the sleeves hanging past my hands. When I emerged, Dante was on the phone, speaking in rapid Italian. His back was to me, and I took the opportunity to study him unobserved. The way he moved was all controlled power, every gesture precise and purposeful. Even in stillness, there was something coiled about him, something that suggested violence held in check. He ended the call and turned, his eyes darkening as they took in my appearance in his robe. "Better?" he said, though I wasn't sure if he meant my emotional state or how I looked wearing his clothes. "My things?" "Arriving shortly. In the meantime..." A knock at the door interrupted him. He moved to answer it, and I noticed how his hand went briefly to his waistband. Checking for a weapon, I realized with a jolt. But it was just a delivery person with bags of food. Dante took them, exchanged a few quiet words I couldn't hear, and closed the door. "Chinese," he said, setting the bags on the dining table. "I didn't know what you liked, so I ordered everything." He wasn't exaggerating. Container after container emerged from the bags. Dumplings, noodles, rice, vegetables, meats I couldn't identify. The scent made my stomach growl, reminding me I hadn't eaten since breakfast. "Sit," Dante commanded, pulling out a chair. I should have bristled at the order. Instead, I found myself obeying, sinking into the leather chair while he served food onto plates with surprising domesticity. We ate in silence for several minutes, the only sounds the clink of chopsticks against plates and the distant hum of the city 15 stories below. The food was incredible, or maybe I was just starving, and I found myself eating more than I'd intended. "Better," Dante said again, watching me with those dark eyes. "You have color in your cheeks now, thank you. For this, I gestured vaguely, encompassing everything. The rescue, the food, the safety I felt, despite being alone with a man who probably had bodies buried somewhere. "Don't thank me yet, Piccola. We haven't discussed terms." My chopsticks froze halfway to my mouth. "Terms?" He leaned back in his chair, studying me with an intensity that made me feel like a butterfly pinned to a board. "Nothing in this life is free. Surely you know that." Fear prickled along my spine. "What do you want?" "Several things." He ticked them off on his fingers. "First, Marcus DeSanto's full name, and any information you have about him, where he works, his friends, his habits. Second, you'll stay here, where I can ensure your safety. Third," he paused, his eyes holding mine, "you'll attend an event with me tomorrow night." "An event?" "A wedding. My cousin's daughter." His smile held no warmth. "I need a date, and you need somewhere to be that isn't crying in a hotel room." "You want me to go to a wedding?" I laughed incredulously. "Less than 24 hours after my own fell apart?" "I want you at my side," he corrected. "The wedding is incidental." "Why?" "Because I've decided you're mine to protect, and I protect what's mine by keeping it close." He leaned forward, his elbows on the table. "Because every man in my organization needs to understand that you're under my protection. Because..." His voice dropped lower. "I want you there." The honesty of that last statement stole my breath. There was desire in his eyes now, dark and unmistakable, but tempered with something else. Control, patience. The promise of a predator who'd already decided on his prey, but was willing to let me come to him. "And if I refuse?" "You won't." It wasn't arrogance, just certainty. "You'll go because staying here alone while I'm gone will drive you insane with overthinking. You'll go because facing the world again has to happen eventually, and doing it at my side is safer than doing it alone. And you'll go..." He reached across the table, his fingers closing around my wrist. "Because you're curious about me, about this, about what it feels like to be claimed by someone who actually wants you." His words hit too close to the truth. I was curious. Terrifyingly, dangerously curious about this man who'd appeared like a dark angel at my lowest moment. "I'll think about it," I whispered. "Fair enough." He released my wrist, but not my gaze. "While you're thinking, know this. Marcus DeSanto will answer for what he did to you. That's not negotiable." "What are you going to do to him? What would you like me to do to him?" The question hung between us, loaded with possibilities that both thrilled and horrified me. Part of me, the part that had been good and kind and tried to see the best in people, wanted to say nothing, to let karma handle it. But another part, a part I hadn't known existed until Dante's hand had touched my back. I want him to hurt, I admitted. The way he hurt me. Dante's smile was beautiful and terrible. Then he will hurt, Piccola, I promise you that. Another knock at the door. My belongings, I assumed. Dante rose to answer it, and I sat alone at the table, Marcus's broken promises weighing against Dante's dark guarantees, trying to understand who I was becoming in the space of a single afternoon. I woke the next morning in sheets that smelled like expensive detergent in someone else's life. For 3 blissful seconds, I forgot everything. Then reality crashed back. The church steps, Marcus's text, Dante's dark eyes promising protection and revenge. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows I hadn't bothered to cover, painting Manhattan in shades of gold. The guest bedroom Dante had shown me to last night was larger than the entire apartment I'd shared with Marcus, decorated in soft grays and cream with furniture that probably cost more than my car. My wedding dress hung on the back of the door like a ghost. I'd meant to throw it away, burn it, something. Instead, I'd simply left it there, a white silk reminder of my stupidity. A soft knock interrupted my spiraling thoughts. "Emma?" Dante's voice muffled by the door. "Are you awake?" I sat up, pulling the sheet higher even though I was wearing the clothes his men had retrieved, an old NYU t-shirt and sleep shorts. "Yes." The door opened, and he stepped inside carrying a tray. He'd clearly been awake for hours, showered, dressed in dark slacks and a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms that shouldn't have been as distracting as they were. "Breakfast," he said, setting the tray on the nightstand. "Coffee, eggs, toast." I wasn't sure what you preferred. I stared at the food, then at him. "You made breakfast?" "Don't sound so shocked. I'm not entirely useless in the kitchen." He settled into the chair by the window, his posture relaxed but his eyes alert. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I expected." The truth surprised me. I'd thought I'd lie awake all night, but exhaustion had pulled me under almost immediately. "What time is it?" "Nearly 10. I let you sleep in." His gaze traveled over me, assessing. "The wedding is at 7 tonight. We'll need to leave by 6. My stomach clenched. "I haven't said yes yet. You haven't said no either." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Eat, Emma. Then we'll talk." The coffee was perfect, strong and black, exactly how I took it. He'd remembered from yesterday, or noticed, or simply paid attention in a way Marcus never had. The eggs were fluffy, seasoned with herbs I couldn't identify, and the toast was the artisanal kind that cost $8 a loaf. "Did you sleep?" I asked between bites. "Some," which probably meant no. I had calls to make, arrangements. "About Marcus?" Something predatory flickered across his face. "Among other things. Your ex-fiancé is proving difficult to locate. He hasn't used his credit cards or accessed his bank account since yesterday morning, which suggests he's either very stupid or someone warned him." I set down my fork. "Warned him about what? About you?" "About the consequences of stealing from you." Dante's voice was casual, but his eyes were hard. $26,000, Emma. That's not nothing. In my world, people lose fingers for less. The image his words conjured made me queasy. "I don't want you to hurt him like that." "No?" He tilted his head, studying me. "What do you want then?" I thought about it. Really thought about what justice looked like when someone had dismantled your entire life in a single text message. I want my money back. I want him to understand what he took from me. Not just the cash, but the years, the trust, the future I'd planned. I want... My voice cracked. I want him to feel something, anything. Because I don't think he ever did. Dante was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes never leaving mine. Then he nodded slowly. "I can work with that. But Emma, understand, when I get involved, I do things my way. It won't be gentle. It won't be forgiving. Are you prepared for that?" "I don't know what I'm prepared for anymore," I admitted. 24 hours ago, I thought I was getting married. Now I'm sitting in a mobster's penthouse discussing revenge over eggs. His smile was sharp. "Life comes at you fast, Piccola. Stop calling me that. What does it even mean? Little one." His gaze softened fractionally. "Because you look like you could break in a strong wind. But I suspect there's steel underneath that softness. Heat crept into my cheeks. I looked away, focusing on my coffee. About tonight? You're going. Not a question. You're very sure of yourself. I'm sure of you. He rose from the chair, moving with that fluid grace that reminded me of dangerous animals. You're terrified of being alone with your thoughts. You're angry and hurt and looking for something, anything, to make you feel less empty. And whether you want to admit it or not, you're curious about me, about what it would be like to step into my world, even for one night. He was right, damn him. Every word was right. What would I even wear? I gestured to the boxes his men had delivered. I have scrubs, jeans, maybe one cocktail dress from 3 years ago. Nothing appropriate for a mob wedding. Already handled. He walked to the closet and opened it, revealing a garment bag I hadn't noticed. Armani, in your size, shoes to match. Jewelry if you want it, though I prefer you simple. I stood, abandoning breakfast, and crossed to the closet. Inside the garment bag was a dress that probably cost more than my car. Deep emerald silk that would hug every curve, with a neckline that promised elegance and danger in equal measure. How did you know my size? I pay attention. His voice was close behind me now, close enough that I could feel his warmth. And I have excellent resources. I turned and found him inches away, his dark eyes intense. This close, I could see flecks of gold in the black, could count each individual eyelash, could smell sandalwood and something warmer, more human. Why are you doing this? My voice came out barely above a whisper. Really? Don't give me the line about protection. There's something else. His hand rose to cup my jaw, thumb tracing my cheekbone. You want the truth? I nodded, my heart hammering. When I saw you yesterday, standing in all that white like a sacrifice, I felt something I haven't felt in years. Want, not just desire. I can get that anywhere, but the want to possess, to claim, to keep. His other hand found my waist, pulling me fractionally closer. You looked like everything pure in this world, and I wanted to corrupt that, to mark you as mine so thoroughly that no one would ever dare touch you again. I should have been horrified, should have pulled away, should have run. But his honesty was intoxicating, and something dark in me responded to the possession in his voice. That's insane, I breathed. Yes, he agreed, but you're still here, still leaning toward me instead of away. Still curious about what it would feel like if I kissed you. I'm not. His mouth was on mine before I could finish the lie. The kiss was nothing like Marcus's careful pecks. It was consuming, demanding, a claiming that left no room for doubt about his intentions. His hand tangled in my hair, angling my head to deepen the kiss, while his other arm locked around my waist, pulling me flush against him. I made a sound, surprise or surrender, I wasn't sure. And his tongue swept into my mouth, tasting, exploring, dominating. Every nerve ending I possessed came alive under his touch, and I found myself kissing him back, with a desperation that should have embarrassed me. When he finally pulled away, we were both breathing hard. His eyes were almost black with desire, his grip on me tight enough to bruise. Still think you're not curious? His voice was rough, strained. I struggled to form words. I think you're dangerous. I am. He released me slowly, stepping back with visible effort. But not to you, Emma. Never to you. Remember that tonight, when you're surrounded by people who would kill for me without question. You're untouchable because I've decided you are. The weight of that promise settled over me like a heavy cloak. Protection and possession, twisted so thoroughly together I couldn't separate them. I'll go tonight, I heard myself say. But we need rules. Interest flickered in his eyes, such as, no more kissing without asking. No assuming I'm yours just because I got in your car. And I forced myself to meet his gaze. When this is over, when you've dealt with Marcus and I've figured out my life, I'm free to leave. Something dangerous crossed his face. And if I don't agree to those terms? Then I walk out right now. We stared at each other, the air between us charged with challenge. Finally, he nodded. The first two I accept. The third? His smile was predatory. We'll revisit that conversation when you're ready to leave. If you're ready to leave. It wasn't what I'd asked for, but it was probably the best I'd get. Fine. Good. He checked his watch. Platinum, probably worth more than my nursing degree. I have business to attend to. There are guards downstairs if you need anything. Don't leave the building without calling me first. I'm a prisoner? You're protected. There's a difference. He moved toward the door, then paused. Emma, wear your hair down tonight. I want to see it loose. Then he was gone, leaving me standing in his guest room wearing his kiss on my lips and his claim in my veins, wondering what kind of woman I was becoming. The hours until evening passed in strange suspension. I showered, standing under water hot enough to redden my skin, trying to wash away yesterday's humiliation. I examined my belongings, everything from the apartment Marcus and I had shared, boxed efficiently by Dante's men. Photos I'd taken down from the walls, books I'd collected over years, the nursing textbooks that had cost a fortune. Everything except Marcus. He'd been erased from my life as thoroughly as if he'd never existed. My phone buzzed. My mother, calling for the 15th time. I let it go to voicemail, unable to face her questions, her worry, her disappointment. What would I even say? Sorry, Mom. I ran off with a mobster who kissed me like he owns me because my fiancé is a lying thief and I have nowhere else to go. At 5:30, I started getting ready. The emerald dress fit perfectly, hugging my waist and hips before falling in a smooth column to my ankles. The neckline dipped low enough to be interesting without being scandalous, and the silk felt like sin against my skin. Shoes, black heels that added 4 inches to my height. Makeup. I kept it simple, just enough to hide the evidence of yesterday's tears. Hair. I left it down as Dante had requested, dark waves falling past my shoulders. I looked like someone else, someone who belonged in penthouses and designer dresses, someone who could stand beside a man like Dante Moretti without seeming out of place. The woman in the mirror was a stranger. A knock at the door. Not Dante this time, but a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an efficient manner. Miss Mitchell? I'm Sophia. Mr. Moretti sent me to help with any finishing touches. Her accent was Italian, her gaze assessing but not unkind. I think I'm ready. Almost. She opened a jewelry box I hadn't noticed on the dresser. Inside lay a necklace, diamonds and emeralds arranged in an intricate pattern, worth more than I'd make in 5 years. Mr. Moretti selected this himself. May I? I nodded, unable to speak as she fastened the necklace around my throat. The stones were cold against my skin, heavy with meaning I couldn't quite grasp. He has excellent taste, Sophia said, stepping back to examine me, though I suspect he'd think you beautiful in anything. Heat flooded my cheeks. It's not like that. Her smile suggested she knew better. Of course not, miss. Mr. Moretti is waiting in the living room when you're ready. She left me alone with my reflection and the weight of diamonds around my neck, a collar disguised as jewelry, marking me as belonging to someone dangerous. I took a deep breath, smoothed the dress, and walked out to meet him. Dante stood by the windows, his back to me, phone pressed to his ear. He wore a tuxedo that had clearly been tailored for his body specifically, the jacket emphasizing the breadth of his shoulders and the narrowness of his waist. His hair was swept back, and even from behind, he radiated power. He ended the call and turned, and the look on his face when he saw me made my breath catch. Hunger. Raw, undisguised hunger mixed with possessive satisfaction. Perfetto, he murmured, moving toward me with predatory grace. You're devastating, Emma. It's the dress. It's you. He circled me slowly, and I felt his gaze like a physical touch. The dress is just packaging. You're the gift. I struggled for words. You can't say things like that. Why not? It's the truth. He stopped in front of me, his fingers trailing along the necklace. Do you know what these stones mean in my world? I shook my head, not trusting my voice. They mean you're claimed, protected, mine. His hand moved from the necklace to my throat, fingers gentle but possessive. Every man at that wedding will see these emeralds and know that touching you means war with me. That's archaic. That's reality, my reality, which you're about to step into. His hand dropped away. Last chance to change your mind, Piccola. Once we walk through those doors together, there's no going back. You'll be known as mine, and that comes with consequences. I thought about staying here, alone with my thoughts and my failures. Thought about facing my mother's calls, Marcus's betrayal, the empty future stretching ahead. Then I thought about the way Dante kissed me, the promise of protection and revenge, the dark thrill of being wanted so completely. I'm ready, I said, and meant it. His smile was beautiful and dangerous. Then let's go show them what belongs to me. He offered his arm, and I took it, feeling the solid strength of him beneath the expensive fabric. The elevator ride down was silent, charged with anticipation. In the lobby, his guards fell into formation around us, 4 men in dark suits, all carrying weapons I could now recognize. The car waiting outside was different from yesterday's Mercedes, a Bentley this time, black and gleaming, with another guard at the wheel. Dante handed me into the back seat with a gentleness that contrasted sharply with the violence I knew he was capable of. As we pulled into traffic, his hand found mine in the darkness, fingers intertwining with a possessiveness that should have frightened me. It didn't. Whatever happens tonight, he said quietly, stay close to me. Don't wander off alone. Don't accept drinks from anyone else. And if anyone makes you uncomfortable, you tell me immediately. You make it sound dangerous. It is dangerous. My family isn't like civilian families. We have rules, hierarchies, enemies. One wrong move and he stopped himself. Just trust me tonight. Can you do that? I looked at our joined hands, at the diamonds around my throat, at the man who'd claimed me as his without permission, but with absolute certainty. Yes, I whispered. I trust you. The lie tasted like truth on my tongue. The church was nothing like St. Catherine's where I'd stood abandoned less than 24 hours ago. This was older, grander. Stone arches soaring toward heaven, stained glass windows depicting saints and sinners in jewel tones, the scent of incense and old money thick in the air. But it was the people that made my breath catch. They parted for Dante like the Red Sea. Men in expensive suits that couldn't quite hide the bulge of weapons nodded with deference bordering on fear. Women in designer gowns appraised me with calculating eyes, their smiles sharp as knives. Children, even the children, seemed to understand that Dante Moretti was not someone you approached casually. His hand remained firmly on the small of my back as he guided me down the aisle, his touch both possessive and protective. I could feel dozens of eyes tracking our progress, could hear whispers rippling through the crowd like poison. Who is she? Where did he find her? Look at those emeralds. He's staking a claim. My fingers tightened on Dante's arm, and he leaned down, his breath warm against my ear. Breathe, Piccola. You're doing perfectly. We took seats in the 3rd row, close enough to show respect, far enough back to observe. The pew was hard wood, worn smooth by generations of Morettis and their associates. To our right sat an older couple, the man silver-haired and distinguished, the woman elegant in navy silk. They nodded at Dante with familiar respect. Uncle Vincent, Aunt Maria, Dante said smoothly. May I introduce Emma Mitchell, Emma, my father's brother and his wife. Vincent's handshake was firm, his eyes assessing me with the same intensity as his nephew's. Miss Mitchell, a pleasure. Dante didn't mention he was bringing someone, Maria said, and though her smile was warm, her gaze was calculating. How did you two meet? Yesterday, Dante answered before I could speak. She needed help. I provided it. Now she's under my protection. The bluntness of the statement made Maria's eyebrows rise fractionally. Yesterday? How spontaneous of you, nephew. Sometimes the best decisions are made quickly. His hand slid from my back to my knee, a casual gesture that blazed through the silk of my dress like a brand. Wouldn't you agree, Uncle? Vincent's laugh was knowing. Indeed. I met Maria on a Tuesday and married her that Saturday. Sometimes you just know. The comparison made my stomach flip. We weren't getting married. This was temporary, transactional. Except Dante's thumb was tracing circles on my knee, and the possessiveness in his touch suggested he saw things very differently. The ceremony began before I could dwell on that terrifying thought. The bride was beautiful, early 20s, dark hair, eyes that held the same dangerous intelligence as Dante's. Her groom was older, perhaps 35, with the bearing of someone who'd earned his place in this world through blood rather than birthright. I should have been watching the couple. Instead, I found myself hyper-aware of Dante beside me, the heat of his body, the way his fingers continued their maddening circles on my knee, the barely audible sound of his breathing. When the priest asked if anyone objected, Dante's hand tightened fractionally, and I wondered what kind of man would be brave, or stupid enough to object to anything in this crowd. The kiss was passionate enough to draw knowing smiles from the congregation. Then it was over, and we were filing out into the fading autumn light, heading toward a reception venue that looked like something from a Renaissance painting. "You survived part 1, Dante murmured as we walked. "Reception will be more challenging. More alcohol, looser tongues, people testing boundaries." "Testing what boundaries?" His smile was grim. "Mine. They'll want to know who you are, why I brought you, what you mean to me. They'll try to separate us, get you alone, ask questions designed to trap or embarrass. Don't let them." Before I could respond, a man materialized beside us, tall, handsome in a brutal way, with scarring along his jaw that suggested violence survived rather than avoided. "Dante." The greeting was respectful, but not warm. "Interesting choice of companion. Marco." Dante's voice cooled several degrees. "I wasn't aware your opinion was requested." "Just making an observation." Marco's eyes slid to me, and something in his gaze made my skin crawl. "She's very fresh, innocent. Not your usual type. My usual type is none of your concern." Dante's hand moved from my back to my waist, pulling me closer against his side. "And Emma is off limits, to everyone. Are we clear?" The threat in those last words was unmistakable. Marco raised his hands in mock surrender, but his smile remained sharp. "Crystal clear, boss. Just curious how someone like her ended up with someone like you. What's the story? Damsel in distress? Debt repayment?" "The story is none of your business," I said, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. "And I'm standing right here. You can direct your rudeness at me instead of through Dante." Marco's eyebrows shot up. Dante went very still beside me. Then, unexpectedly, Marco laughed, a genuine sound of appreciation. "She's got teeth. I like that." He nodded at Dante. "Good luck with this one. Something tells me you'll need it." He walked away, and I felt some of the tension leave Dante's body. That was either very brave or very stupid. "Probably stupid," I admitted. "But I'm tired of people talking about me like I'm not here. It's been happening since yesterday. Yesterday you were a victim." His hand cupped my face, forcing me to meet his intense gaze. "Today you're under the protection of Dante Moretti. That means you bow to no one, Piccola. Not even to me." The words sent warmth through my chest that had nothing to do with attraction and everything to do with being seen, truly seen, for the first time in longer than I could remember. The reception hall was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, tables draped in cream silk, and adorned with flowers that probably cost more than my monthly rent. A string quartet played in the corner, and waiters circulated with champagne and appetizers that looked like tiny works of art. Dante guided me to a table near the front, seating me before taking the chair beside me rather than across from me. His positioning was deliberate, close enough to touch, angled so he could see both me and the room's entrances simultaneously. "Champagne?" A waiter appeared, offering a tray. "No," Dante said before I could answer. He caught the waiter's attention and spoke quietly in Italian. The young man nodded and disappeared. "I can order my own drinks," I said. "Not here, not tonight." His gaze swept the room, cataloging threats I couldn't see. "I told you. Only accept drinks from me. That waiter will bring you water, unopened. Anything else? I'll get it myself, or watch it being made." The paranoia should have seemed excessive. Instead, it made me realize just how dangerous this world truly was. Has someone actually tried to? Twice. Once at a wedding similar to this one. Once at a business dinner. His attention returned to me. Neither attempt was successful, but I learned to be cautious. And now that you're with me, that caution extends to you. The waiter returned with a sealed bottle of water and 2 glasses. Dante opened it himself, poured for both of us, and only then seemed to relax fractionally. Dante Moretti. As I live and breathe, the voice was female, sultry, with an edge that made me instantly wary. I looked up to find a woman approaching our table. Late 20s, stunning in a red dress that left little to the imagination, dark hair cascading down her back in perfect waves. Her smile was aimed at Dante like a weapon. Valentina. Dante's tone was polite but distant. Congratulations on your cousin's marriage. Thank you. Her gaze slid to me, and her smile sharpened. And who is this? I don't believe we've met. Emma Mitchell, I said, extending my hand because it seemed like the polite thing to do. Nice to meet you. Her handshake was brief, dismissive. Mitchell, not Italian. How unexpected. She turned back to Dante, effectively cutting me out of the conversation. I haven't seen you at any events lately. I was starting to think you were avoiding me. I've been busy. Too busy for old friends? She leaned closer, one hand landing on his shoulder with familiar ease. We had such good times together, Dante. Remember that weekend in Tuscany? The vineyard, the villa, that enormous bed. Valentina. Dante's voice cut through her reminiscence like a blade. He removed her hand from his shoulder with deliberate care. I'm here with Emma. Show some respect. Her eyes flashed with something ugly. Respect? For this little nobody you dragged in off the street? Please. Everyone here is wondering the same thing. What possible reason could you have for bringing someone so ordinary? The word stung, probably because part of me agreed with her. I was ordinary. A nurse from Queens with student loans and a broken engagement, sitting among people who measured wealth and properties and influence rather than paychecks. But before I could respond, Dante stood with controlled violence in every line of his body. Careful, Valentina. You're very close to insulting something that belongs to me. The possessiveness in his voice should have made me bristle. Instead, something warm and dangerous unfurled in my chest. Belongs to you? Valentina laughed, but it sounded forced. Since when do you stake claims? You've never been the possessive type, Dante. You like variety, remember? You told me that yourself. People change. He extended his hand to me, his eyes never leaving Valentina's face. Emma, dance with me. I took his hand and let him pull me to my feet, hyper-aware of Valentina's venomous stare following us as we moved toward the dance floor. Several other couples were already dancing, the bride and groom at the center, surrounded by family members swaying to the quartet's romantic melody. Dante's arms came around me with confident possession, one hand at my waist, the other capturing mine and pressing it against his chest. I could feel his heartbeat beneath my palm, steady, strong, controlled. I'm sorry about her, he said quietly. Valentina and I had a brief arrangement. It ended 6 months ago. Arrangement. I tested the word. That's a clinical way to describe it. It was clinical. Transactional. She wanted access to my world. I wanted someone presentable at events. We both knew what it was. His hand tightened on my waist. Nothing like this. This? My voice came out breathier than I intended. What is this exactly? I'm still figuring that out. He pulled me closer, until we were pressed together from chest to thigh, moving in perfect synchronization, despite never having danced together before. But it's not clinical, and it's sure as hell not transactional. The music swelled around us, and I let myself relax into his embrace, my head finding the hollow of his shoulder, as if it belonged there. His scent enveloped me. Sandalwood and danger, and something uniquely him that made me want to bury my face in his neck and inhale. Everyone's watching us, I murmured. Let them watch. Let them see that you're mine. His lips brushed my temple, a gesture so tender it made my chest ache. Let them understand what happens to anyone who tries to hurt you. You're very possessive for someone I met yesterday. I told you. When I saw you on those church steps, something in me recognized something in you, like I'd been waiting for you without knowing it. He pulled back enough to meet my eyes, his expression intense. I know it's fast. I know it's probably insane. But I also know that I haven't felt this alive, this focused, this certain about anything in years. And that has to mean something. Before I could respond, Before I could even process what he was saying, a commotion erupted near the entrance. Raised voices, scuffling, the distinctive sound of security moving to intercept a threat. Dante went rigid, his arms tightening around me protectively. "Stay behind me." "What's happening?" "I don't know yet. But whatever it is," he positioned himself between me and the disturbance, one hand moving to his waistband, where I now knew he kept a weapon. "Don't move from this spot." The crowd parted, revealing the source of the commotion. My heart stopped. Marcus. He looked terrible, disheveled, eyes wild, clothes rumpled like he'd slept in them. Two of Dante's guards had him by the arms, preventing him from entering further, but he was struggling against their grip with desperate strength. "Emma!" His voice cracked across the reception hall. "Emma, please! I need to talk to you!" The room went silent. Every eye turned toward us, toward me, waiting to see how this drama would unfold. I felt Dante's entire body coil with barely restrained violence. "You know him," Dante said quietly. Not a question. "That's Marcus." My voice sounded distant, disconnected from my body, my ex-fiancé. Something terrible crossed Dante's face. A darkness so complete it made my blood run cold. When he spoke, his voice was soft, almost gentle, which somehow made it more frightening. "The man who stole your money, who destroyed your life." Each statement was delivered with surgical precision. "That man?" "Yes." "Good." Dante's smile was beautiful and deadly. "I've been looking for him." He moved before I could stop him, crossing the dance floor with predatory grace. The crowd scattered, sensing violence the way animals sense earthquakes. I followed despite his order to stay put, unable to watch from a distance. By the time I reached them, Dante had Marcus pinned against a marble column, one forearm pressed across his throat, while his other hand held something that glinted silver in the chandelier light, a knife. Small, elegant, and pressed against Marcus's ribs hard enough to leave an impression through his shirt. "Mr. DeSanto," Dante said conversationally, "I've been hoping we'd meet." Marcus's eyes found mine over Dante's shoulder, wide with terror. "Emma, please. I can explain everything. She made me do it. Brittany, the woman I left with, she said if I didn't get the money He choked, as Dante pressed harder against his throat. "I don't care about your excuses," Dante interrupted. "I care about what you took from Emma. $26,000. 3 years of her life, her dignity, her trust." The knife pressed deeper, and Marcus whimpered. "How shall we make this right, Dante?" I touched his shoulder, and he went very still. "Not here. Not like this." "No?" He glanced back at me, his expression unreadable. "Where then? How? He hurt you, Emma. Destroyed you. What's the appropriate response to that?" I looked at Marcus, really looked at him. The man I'd planned to marry, to build a life with, to grow old beside, and felt nothing. No love, no anger, not even hate. Just a vast emptiness where those feelings should have been. "I want my money back," I said clearly. "All of it. Today. And then I want him gone from my life forever." "Emma, I don't have it anymore," Marcus babbled. "Brittany took most of it, and I spent the rest on—" "Then you'll get it." Dante's voice was ice. "You'll borrow it, steal it, sell everything you own. You have 48 hours to transfer $26,000 to Emma's account. And if you fail," the knife pressed hard enough to draw a bead of blood through Marcus's shirt, "I'll take payment in flesh instead." "I can't. 48 hours. Dante released him abruptly, and Marcus collapsed against the column, gasping. "And if you ever speak to Emma again, if you even think about her, if I hear you've said her name in public," he leaned close, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried through the silent room, "I'll make you beg for death long before I grant it." He turned away from Marcus like he was nothing, like he'd already been erased from existence, and extended his hand to me. "Come, Piccola. Let's enjoy the rest of the evening. This trash isn't worth our time." I took his hand, and as we walked back toward our table through the parted crowd, I felt something shift inside me. The woman who'd stood on church steps yesterday, crying and broken, was gone. In her place was someone harder, someone who'd let a mobster threaten her ex-fiancé with knives and felt nothing but satisfaction. I should have been horrified by that transformation. I wasn't. The rest of the reception passed in a blur of champagne I didn't drink and conversations I barely heard. Dante kept me close, his hand never leaving my body, my waist, my back, my hand, as if physical contact could shield me from the aftermath of Marcus's appearance. People approached our table with careful deference, offering congratulations to the bride and groom while their eyes kept sliding to me, calculating, wondering. I was the mysterious woman who'd appeared on Dante Moretti's arm, the one he'd defended with knives and threats. By morning, my name would be whispered in every corner of this dark world. "You're quiet," Dante murmured, as we drove back to his penthouse hours later. The city lights painted patterns across his face, softening the harsh angles into something almost gentle. Processing. I watched Manhattan slide past through tinted windows. This time yesterday, I was the girl left at the altar. Now I'm... What? Your possession? Your project? You're under my protection. There's a difference. Is there? I turned to face him. You threatened Marcus with a knife in front of 200 people. You made me wear emeralds that apparently announce ownership. You won't let me order my own drinks or leave your side for 5 minutes. That sounds an awful lot like possession to me. His jaw tightened. I keep you safe. By controlling every aspect of my life. By ensuring no one can hurt you again. His hand found mine in the darkness, fingers intertwining with familiar possessiveness. Emma, you walked into my world. These aren't rules I made, they're necessities. People in my life are targets. They need protection, boundaries, constant vigilance. I didn't ask for this. No. You asked for escape, and I provided it. Everything else. He brought my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles that sent heat racing through my veins. Everything else is consequence. We rode the rest of the way in silence, the tension between us thick enough to taste. In the penthouse, Dante poured himself whiskey while I stood by the windows, looking out at the city that had become simultaneously refuge and prison. Marcus will transfer the money, Dante said from behind me. I've already arranged it. By tomorrow afternoon, you'll have every penny back. How can you be so sure? Because he values his life more than $26,000. Ice clinked in his glass. And because I put men on him the moment we left. He can't run, can't hide, can't do anything but comply. I should have felt satisfied. Instead, I just felt tired. What happens now? After I get my money back? The silence stretched so long, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then his footsteps, measured and deliberate, crossing the space between us. His hand settled on my shoulders, warm and solid. What do you want to happen? I don't know anymore. The honesty tasted bitter. 2 days ago I had a plan, a life. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. Now everything's different, and I don't know who I am in this version of reality. You're Emma. His breath stirred my hair. Strong, resilient, beautiful. Mine. There's that word again. I turned in his grip, meeting his dark eyes. I'm not yours, Dante. I can't be. This whole thing, the protection, the threats, the possessiveness, it's not sustainable. Eventually, I need to rebuild my actual life. Something dangerous flickered across his face. Your actual life. The one where you work yourself to exhaustion? Where men like Marcus take advantage of your kindness? Where you're alone and vulnerable, better alone than owned. Is it? He pulled me closer, until we were pressed together, his heart beating steady against my chest. Because from where I'm standing, you haven't tried very hard to leave. You wore the dress I bought, the jewelry I chose. You let me hold you, kiss you, claim you in front of everyone who matters. If you truly wanted to leave, Piccola, you would have walked out yesterday. He was right, and the truth of it terrified me. I had let him claim me. Had wanted it, on some level. Craved the protection and possessiveness he offered. But wanting something, and it being right, were different things entirely. I was vulnerable, I said weakly. Hurt, not thinking clearly. And now? His hand cupped my face, thumb tracing my lower lip. Are you thinking clearly now? No. With him this close, touching me like I was something precious and breakable, I couldn't think at all. My body responded to his proximity with traitorous enthusiasm, pulse racing, breath quickening, heat pooling low in my belly. "Dante." He kissed me before I could finish, and this time there was no gentleness, no careful seduction. This was claiming, pure and simple. His mouth demanded surrender, his hands holding me captive while his tongue swept in to possess every inch of me. I should have pushed him away, should have enforced the boundaries I'd insisted on. Instead, I kissed him back with equal desperation, my fingers tangling in his hair, my body arching into his with shameless need. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes were almost black with desire. "Tell me to stop," he said roughly. "Tell me you don't want this, and I'll walk away right now. I'll help you find an apartment, get you settled, and never touch you again." It was the out I'd asked for, the freedom I claimed to want. All I had to do was say the words. My voice caught. "I can't." "Can't what? Can't tell me to stop?" His forehead pressed against mine, his breath warm on my lips. Or can't walk away? Both. Neither. I don't know. Tears pricked my eyes, frustration and confusion and want all tangled together. "You scare me, Dante. Not because I think you'll hurt me, but because I want this. Want you. And I don't understand how I can want someone I barely know, especially after Marcus." He finished the sentence I couldn't. "Emma, what you felt for him wasn't real. It was comfortable, familiar, safe. What you feel for me is real, raw, dangerous. And yes, it's fast and probably insane, but that doesn't make it less true. How can you be so sure?" "Because I feel it too." His hands framed my face, forcing me to hold his intense gaze. "Because every instinct I have screams to keep you close. Protect you. Make you mine in every way that matters. Because when I saw you yesterday, something broken inside me started to heal. The vulnerability in his admission broke something loose in my chest. This man, this dangerous, powerful, terrifying man, was offering me something Marcus never had. Honesty. Truth. The promise of protection that came with possession, but also the certainty that I mattered. "I'm scared," I whispered. "Good. Fear means you're paying attention." He kissed me again, softer this time, almost reverent. "Stay, Emma. Not as a prisoner or a possession, but as mine by choice. Let me show you what it means to be protected, cherished, wanted. And if it doesn't work, if I can't handle your world, then we'll figure it out together, but give us a chance. Give me a chance to prove that what I'm offering is worth the risk." I looked into his eyes and saw the truth there. He meant every word. This wasn't a game or manipulation. Dante Moretti, mob boss and criminal, was laying himself bare before me, offering everything he was in exchange for my trust. "Okay," I breathed. "Okay, I'll stay. But on my terms, I keep working, keep my independence, make my own choices." "Agreed, with one condition." "What condition?" His smile was sharp and possessive. "You sleep in my bed, not the guest room, with me, every night." Heat flooded through me at the implication. "That's non-negotiable." He pulled me flush against him, letting me feel exactly how much he wanted me. "I need to know you're safe, Emma. And the safest place in this building is beside me." The logic was flawed, probably deliberately so. But looking into his dark eyes, feeling the solid strength of him, I couldn't bring myself to argue. "Fine. Your bed. But you keep your hands to yourself until I'm ready for more. I can be patient." His expression suggested otherwise, but he nodded. "When you're ready, you'll come to me. And Piccola?" His mouth found my ear, voice dropping to a growl. "When that happens, I won't be gentle." The promise sent shivers down my spine. Fear and anticipation twisted together so tightly I couldn't separate them. 3 weeks later, I woke wrapped in Dante's arms, morning sunlight painting his bedroom gold. His breathing was steady, peaceful. One hand splayed possessively across my stomach even in sleep. I'd learned his rhythms by now, the way he worked late into the night, the phones that rang at odd hours, the meetings conducted in Italian that I wasn't invited to. But I'd also learned the gentle side he showed only to me, the way he made breakfast on his rare, free mornings, How he listened when I talked about my nursing shifts, even asking follow-up questions that proved he'd been paying attention. The careful way he touched me, always passionate, but never pushing for more than I was ready to give. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A bank notification. I opened it, and my breath caught. $26,000, deposited yesterday, just as Dante had promised. Marcus had come through, probably terrified of what would happen if he didn't. Good news? Dante's voice was rough with sleep, his arms tightening around me. The money came through. I know. I've been monitoring the account. He pressed a kiss to my shoulder. You're free now, Emma. Financially stable. You could walk away if you wanted. I turned in his embrace, meeting his guarded expression. Is that what you want? No. But I want you to choose to stay, not because you have to, but because you want to. I thought about the past 3 weeks. The fear and excitement of Dante's world. The way he made me feel protected and desired and seen. The darkness I'd discovered in myself. The part that thrilled at his possessiveness instead of fighting it. I'm not going anywhere, I said softly. You claimed me, remember? And maybe I'm claiming you back. Something fierce and tender crossed his face. Then his mouth was on mine, and this time when he rolled me beneath him, I didn't ask him to stop. Didn't want him to stop. Because somewhere between the church steps and this moment, I'd stopped being the woman Marcus had broken and become someone new. Someone who belonged to Dante Moretti. And the terrifying truth was, I didn't want to be anyone else.